Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Bourbon Friday Show. Oh my goodness, I'm your co-host Christian Johnson from Multipass, and this is...
I'm Nick Niehaus with Connect Marketing, the other co-host.
the other co-host. What's your name?
Tiffany Chimal from MakersValley.
MakersValley.
Yeah,
Yes.
welcome to the show.
Thanks.
So everybody, thank you so much for just being a part of the Bourbon Friday Show. This is like our sixth
Fifth official,
Yeah.
sixth if you count that silly kind of test one we did.
Yes, but we're so glad that you have been sticking with us. And our goal for the Bourbon Friday Show is really to highlight startups in the St. Louis tech ecosystem that are doing amazing jobs of just building their companies. And we want to promote what they're doing. We want to promote different initiatives and different people or different companies like Arch Grants that are helping fund startups. So today we're going to be talking about co-founders actually, and just like how co-founders work together to have a shared vision to build their company. We each all have co-founders in our companies, and it's not easy at all, right? Definitely not easy.
It is challenging.
But like we want to kind of share that journey because that's really about a journey. So today we have Tiffany from MakersValley, and she is from from New York to St. Louis because of Arch Grants. She's an Arch Grants recipient, and so shout out to Arch Grants. They're doing an amazing job of like really bringing companies from across the world, actually, right?
Yeah,
to
international, right?
St. Louis. Yeah, to St. Louis to build their company here. It's like $50,000 non-diluted grant fund. To start your company here and help it thrive. So Tiffany, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
today.
you're welcome. Thanks for inviting me, guys.
Yeah.
So in your journey from New York, like how was it? How did you make that transition? Like you and your partner coming here to St. Louis and building your company. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, sure. So, the journey, I just want to preface by saying it's different for everyone. So no one ever follows the same journey as an entrepreneur. I know when you want to become an entrepreneur, you're looking at everyone's journey and trying to study their path and then trying to make your life in it. Unfortunately, everyone has their own journey. So that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur, is like sharing with each other the journey. And I think my journey kind of started when I finished grad school. It was like in actually college, 2007, finished college. It was actually right when the recession happened.
Wow.
So I went to grad school for the next 4 years, and then I moved to Italy shortly after that. I was living in Naples, Italy, and in Milan working.
Wow.
And from Milan, moved over to New York, which was amazing, and started MakersValley in New York. And then most recently moved here to St. Louis in October. So yeah, it's been a really interesting 2 years having a startup, just kind of moving from place to place all over the world. It's been really fun though.
That's awesome.
And so like you guys came here to St. Louis. How has it been? And you guys are in the kind of fashion scene. How has it been interacting with other boutiques around here, and just like in the scene in general in fashion?
So we actually applied to Arch Grants because we knew that there used to be a really thriving garment district here on Washington Avenue, which is actually where we're sitting right now, is on Washington Avenue.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons why we were really attracted to St. Louis. And, we've only been here, I think, 3 months. So it's kind of flown by.
Yeah.
And we really like it, mostly because there's this spirit, there's this kind of bubbling underneath the ground of people. You kind of feel it in the city, people wanting to build here. And there's everyone's kind of doing their part or trying to do their part to kind of bring it up over the surface. So you feel kind of a bubbling underneath the surface. And when we first got here, we just kind of met with the different organizations here in St. Louis that were in the fashion ecosystem, just to kind of understand what projects they had going on, how we could help them or help facilitate that. So we met with City Sewing Room, which is an excellent resource here for emerging designers. The St. Louis Fashion Fund is excellent as well. They have a lot of public events for creatives and designers. And there's just a lot of resources here that are untapped or that have been tapped into that we're exploring.
Yeah. So I think like I'm from St. Louis and I never realized that there was like a big garment district here. But it sounds like that's something that people outside of St. Louis knew about, or that was a significant part of the history here. So tell me about that. So what was that like, and at what point did that kind of fade out in St. Louis?
Yeah, so it was actually, St. Louis used to be really strong in shoe manufacturing.
Okay.
The Brown Shoe Company. Right?
Yeah, another Brown Shoe
so
Company's
shoes
big.
were like really, really big here. There were a lot of different like sewing shops on Washington Avenue. A lot of the skills were really here. There were a lot of seamstresses, pattern makers. It was just, it really made up a lot of the industry here in St. Louis. It was very strong. That was in like the beginning of the 20th century.
Okay, so it was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. But you're sort of seeing this resurgence. Just a couple weeks ago, you had the Rent the Runway CEO that was here in St. Louis at the women's conference here downtown. She was giving a speech and kind of tapping into this growing market. And that's pretty much, if you look, there's so many, informational things available on the internet about the garment district in St. Louis and and pictures of it, what it looked like. And it was just, it was such a critical mass down here. There's so many storefronts here, so many people involved in the garment making that it's just a really rich history.
Yeah. So that's very, very important, because we need that back. And now you're here, and you're here at T-Rex, and being incubated. Is there other startups here that deal in fashion here at T-Rex? Do you know?
So I know here at T-Rex, there's a little bit over 200 companies, 200 startups here. So there's a lot of activity going on here, which makes it a great place to work out of.
Is there anything
fashion related? I know that there's 2 other Arch Grants recipients, but they're at the St. Louis Fashion Funds. But here in this space, I've met entrepreneurs that are somewhat involved in fashion, but not directly in a fashion tech startup. Yeah.
Well, definitely that would be cool to really see how T-Rex kind of incubates fashion startups.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I saw the other day that they are actually trying, and I think you may have written the article on EQ that I was reading. Actually, it was about the some of the Wash Ave storefronts are starting to try to attract some of these designers again.
Yeah, it's an initiative of the St. Louis Fashion Fund, which actually is just a few blocks down the road here. They are, right here, the real estate market in St. Louis is very ripe, and there's a lot of quite affordable rents if you compare them to New York City, where it would cost $15,000 per month to just rent a store, a building here. Here in St. Louis, you can get space for as little as $800. So
15 grand for a year, basically.
15 grand for a month. Yeah.
No, I know, in New York.
It's like the same, right?
It's like a 12th of the price.
So just trying to kind of incentivize boutique owners to move their operations here downtown and give them some space to kind of sell their handmade products is what the St. Louis Fashion Fund is trying to do.
So real quick, I would love to know just a little bit about what MakersValley actually does.
Sure.
And
Sure, yeah. So we're 3 co-founders. So it's me, Babajide Okusanya. He's our CTO, originally from Lagos, Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
And there's also our CEO, Alessio Iadichico. He's from Italy. And there's 3 of us, and we have a team of 7 people. So we have a team in Italy, and we have a team here in the U.S. And we all do different things, but all work together, mostly remotely, which is a very, different sort of way of working, but it also can be very effective.
Yeah.
And we've built a platform where we're connecting 150 Italian apparel manufacturers and artisans directly with emerging independent designers and boutique owners to start their own private label clothing line in Italy. So basically, you go on the platform, you upload your pattern or some pictures of your product that you want to make. So you want to make this jacket, for example. And then through our platform, we match you with the factory that can make that. We send you a quote, a bid. The factories can bid on your project. So right there in your MakersValley account, you'll get a bunch of different bids that you can choose from for your first sample and for your production. You can choose the one that works for you. and within 6 weeks you'll have your first jacket sample with your label on it. And
within 6 weeks.
Within 6 weeks you'll have your first sample. And
that's
an Italian artisan made it. So the great thing is you can log into your MakersValley account. There's a timeline in your project. So you can watch the artisan cutting and sewing your jacket.
Really?
You can watch video of them cutting and sewing it. You can share that on your social media.
Cool.
So that's basically what we do, is we're connecting these artisans with designers.
So I think I remember you telling me before we went live here that there's no minimum order. So somebody can get like just one piece made if they really need to.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the great things. One of the, what we're trying to do is lower the barrier to entry to the market, because a lot of new designers maybe don't have the cash to get started. So when you're a new designer and you're trying to make a jacket, for example, you look on Google for factories that make jackets. They have really high minimum orders. They say you get to make 600 pieces. And for someone that's just starting out, or a boutique owner that doesn't have space for 600 pieces, it's a little bit, maybe you don't want to go that avenue. So with us, there's no minimum orders. We can connect you with artisans that can make you one piece or 50 or 5,000. So whatever your order needs are, you get matched to the platform and the factory accepts your project.
So that's really amazing. And you're starting to really thrive. And as we know, as startups, it's not easy. But we rely on our co-founders to help us pitch. We're pitching ideas to each other and really having shared visions. And so we're gonna go into our panel discussion, right?
Yeah. So I think today we like to do first half of our episode kind of an interview, and then we like to talk about a specific topic. So today we want to talk about having a co-founder. So that there are people that have different opinions there, right? So there's some people like to go completely on their own. They can't stand the idea of sharing the ownership and the responsibility. And then I guess there won't be too much controversy because we all have at least one co-founder. I know you have two. We wanted to talk about, what makes a good co-founder? How do you make sure you're finding a good person that's a good fit for you? And then how do you make sure that relationship works properly, right? I think that, it is a business relationship, but at least in my experience, it's probably the most intimate business relationship I've ever had. I think you would both probably agree. So if you guys want to kind of take it from there, what, first of all, makes someone a good match for you? So I'm kind of curious, you have two co-founders and you all have very specific roles. So how did you decide on those two co-founders in the business?
So I think when you first meet your co-founders, you have to kind of differentiate the hard skill versus the soft skill. So everyone has, skills that they can bring to the table. So when you're starting your business from the beginning, you just kind of have to find, first of all, people you trust. So people in your social circle that are your friends that you already sort of feel comfortable with. That's really ideal in a perfect world. And that's how we started. Baba Jide, Alessio, and I, we were all friends. And we also were part of the same organization called Isaac, which is how I actually got my internship in Italy and met Alessio. And Baba also worked for Isaac as well. So we all worked in Isaac. So we all had that kind of backbone that we were all in that same organization, which Isaac is really into creating global citizens. So we all kind of felt aligned with that mission.
Yeah, that's great.
So I think separating the hard skills from the soft skills, and then looking at your startup, because it's really like a separate person, and kind of looking at it, I kind of say it's like a baby. So kind of looking at the baby and seeing what does it need to be successful, and then looking at the people you have around you and saying, okay, you bring these hard skills to the table, and now Alessio brings these hard skills, and then just kind of piecing it all together. And if there's any gaps, finding partners to fill in the gaps, and that's how we kind of went through it.
And for me, I really care about execution and really having a vision, and are we going to execute on this or not? And finding somebody. I'm glad that my partner Sarah Schlafly, she is an executor, so she's able to take my big picture ideas, because I'm a visionary. I am, and saying, okay, let's turn these into action steps and then execute on it. If you just have a vision and you're not doing anything, and that's not a business, and it just nothing ever happens. But surrounding yourself with people our co-founder that will say, okay, I will like aligning myself with you or this vision and like executing that. But also I really, really believe in like that vision like has to be like, it can't just be your vision. It has to be like all these different parts, and like that's why it's like a shared vision. Yeah, like moving forward. I don't know, like what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a question I'd have for you. Is so with 3 people, I mean, two can be hard enough, right? Making sure you're agreeing on where the company's heading. But especially when you're a young startup, I mean, it's almost like you have all these possibilities in front of you, kind of what you can become. So how did you get alignment around that vision when you first got started, and does that change, or has that changed throughout the process for you?
So I think as co-founders and just as the business matures, I mean, and also as people, you're constantly changing, right?
Sure, yeah.
And, when you have your co-founders, it's basically like having a second family because you get to know each other really well. You know, if they're having a great day or maybe a not so great day, and you just kind of work with them together through that. And I would say since the beginning, our vision has remained pretty constant. We've always had this big vision of democratizing manufacturing. And, with our co-founding team, we're from 3 different countries as well. So when you throw in the cultural peculiarities of, Nigeria, Italy, United States, you have that element as well.
Sure.
But actually, what we found is you can really use it to your advantage because everyone comes to the table with such different like mindsets and ideas that it actually makes the process more enriching. And that we found just the diversity makes it even better. But I agree with Christian that the execution is always important.
Of course. Yeah.
So making sure that you're constantly communicating about your expectations to one another and just having the execution in mind, and this is our goal and this is what we all want to drive towards through this year. So
I guess I have a question for you, and I'll share my side of it too. So when I think of co-founders, I think maybe the most famous co-founders are probably Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, right? And they very clearly fell into the, Steve Jobs was the visionary and the guy who was on stage in front of thousands of people, and Steve Wozniak was kind of the executor and the guy who took care of a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So, I agree with Christian that I'm probably the visionary in our company, and Vanessa's the one that makes sure things get done. I drive her crazy with all kinds of new ideas and directions we want to take things. So have you found that kind of happens in your team of 3? Is there somebody that kind of drives the vision?
Yeah, it's so definitely our CEO, Alessio. He's definitely the one that's more visionary, kind of like pushes us forward and guides the overall vision of MakersValley. I deal with more like the operations side of things, so really the more detailed person that kind of puts all that into place. And then Bob, of course, our technical co-founder. But depending on the project we're working on, and as we're having like meetings through Hangouts or Skype, you can kind of understand, and depending on the project, we might switch places. So, depending on if it's a marketing project, you might have maybe, someone else come to the forefront and be stronger in that side of it. So it really just depends, but you sort of fall into your own little space in the startup, I think.
Yeah, kind of wherever your strengths lie, that's probably where you kind of have the vision, right?
What I would say too is like, I like how you said like, just like having different strengths. So like even like with me like sometimes I'm more of like just like the executor where I'm just doing, and then like my partner, like she does more of the visionary stuff. And
in our defense, we should say we don't just come up with ideas and make the other person do all the work.
Yeah. It's very much as an entrepreneur, as a startup, you're wearing many hats.
Yeah, it's all hands on deck, like the whole time, right?
Yeah, the whole time. Like that's just the way it is.
Sure.
But it's really just great to have these conversations because as startups, like we are understanding that this is a journey and we have to learn from each other. And it's great to be at spaces like T-Rex where that innovation and that community can thrive. And I'm so glad to like have like EQ to be like telling these stories and putting this out there. So thank you, EQ, for doing this and putting on the Bourbon Friday show, and T-Rex for incubating all these different startups. This is coming to the end of our show. Thank you, Tiffany, so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
This has been amazing.
Thanks for putting up with our technical difficulties there for a couple minutes to get it figured out, though.
You want to wrap up?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd like to thank our week-to-week producer, Vanessa Lobo, who's my business partner. She's behind the camera, taking care of everything on the back end. So thank you to her. Christian already plugged EQ and T-Rex, but we're very grateful to them. And we are on live at 4:30 every Friday, assuming there's no technical issues, and then it's 4:40 if that's the case. But sometime around 4:30, we'll be here next week. We meet at T-Rex every week, and we do have an event that's kind of growing a little bit here. But if you ever want to attend, you got to email us first. So if you would like to be on the list, let us know. And we'll see you again next Friday at 4:30 on the EQ Facebook page.
Yes. All right. See you guys later.